We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. On May 5th, we love everything in college football. We're talking college football on Sunday, May 5th. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner. Become a legend in the chat room. Give us a phone call later in the show. Come on into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost college football YouTube channel on this Sunday afternoon with a donation, just hit that dollar sign. Make a comment, and we'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. There was nothing that was going to stop us from having a live show this Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, I found myself back at the hospital yesterday for an infection. I was in the emergency room a couple months ago, but we got on top of it once again, and hopefully I will win the battle once again. I don't know what else to tell you. So as I was sitting in the hospital yesterday, I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to figure out the live programming, but yesterday was pretty dead, so we didn't miss anything. And then things are perking up this morning, Sunday morning coming down. So I told the little general, the antibiotics are working. The pain medicine is working. Let's go. Let's get it going once again. So, look, we're going to be talking about luxury tax. Luxury tax. There's no luxury tax in college football. There's not even a salary cap yet. In where if you go over, you have to pay a luxury tax. The NBA is a prime example of a luxury tax. In fact, they got a couple different levels above the salary cap. There's a salary cap, and if you go above they call it the apron. You go above the salary cap, you pay a luxury tax. If you go above another level of the luxury tax, then you're above the apron, some sort of lingo like that, and then you pay this huge percentage of luxury tax. We're going to be seeing that in college football. Well, what's interesting about it is there is a well-known, maybe not to the PATC community, but a well-known consultant who's a consultant of athletic departments and of the SEC, went on record in an article published today. He's a consultant. Greg Sankey, consultant. He consults Greg Sankey. Very, very, very interesting. Now, there was a question by Larry the GM in the chat. There is a question. Explain how this is legal, Greg. Well, I can't, except for in the same interview, in the same article, this consultant, and he's well known from a certain sector of people that I talk to, well-known consultant. He was also talking about collective bargaining, to create a collective bargaining agreement. This is a fascinating article, and I happen to think, because I got on the phone after I read it, I happen to think it's legit. I think the information is legit. Now, so what Greg Sankey, look, and if I believe it's legit, that means that Greg Sankey knows what's up, even though he doesn't want to say it. Even though he doesn't want to upset the presidents of the SEC, he knows what's up. Collective bargaining, salary cap, collective bargaining, get an agreement with the representatives of the student athletes, salary cap, and then a potential luxury tax. Luxury tax. So, if the Ohio State Buckeyes want to spend more than $20 million, they can. They can spend up whatever they want, but there's going to be possibly some sliding scale of how much you go over the salary cap. You pay a luxury tax. Now, where that money would go, I don't know. I don't know if the NCAA would pocket or if that would go to the, I don't know, to the lowest earning athletic department. I don't know. Do not know. Very fascinating article, and I think it is worth the time to go deep into it. So we're going to start our program with that. However, this Sunday morning, has been very, very interesting. Major movement inside the Holy Smokes Theater, the matinee special, Pack 2 and Friends. Major movement, and it's legit. Again, I'm not going to be able to point to its legitimacy like I can point to the first subject that we're going to be talking about today. So you can take it however you want it. But you know our record in the Holy Smokes Theater. Of course, this is a matinee special, but we're going to go over, look, the last update for the matinee, the Pack 2 and Friends. Fresno State, San Diego State, and Boise State were at the center of the stage. And then there were programs scattered throughout the 40 rows that make up the arena, the stadium at the Holy Smokes Theater. But it's now more clear. It's now more clear where schools sit. It's going to be, there's major movement. Major movement. And I think you're gonna enjoy this update more than the previous ones, because the previous ones were more cloudy, but things become more clear as time goes on. Information is coming in. Remember, and we gave you a hint, and a wink, when we first opened up the matinee special. Remember, Washington State and Oregon State signing on the dotted line for the next 2 years. The CW and Fox out of the they've got their media contract all ready to go. We don't know what the number figure is, and that's important. It's going to be very important we find out what that number figure is, because, well, when Washington State and Oregon State build this conference, when they build this new G5 conference, they're going to be shooting for the number, whatever they've signed with Fox and the CW. Right? They're going to be shooting for that. They don't want to go down. They don't want to decline. They want to shoot for that number and for that level of exposure. So we are going to get deep into that. We're getting out ahead of it. A lot of people aren't talking about this. They are, but not out in public. We can at this time, some of it. So we're going to shoot it to you straight this Sunday afternoon. Fascinating. Gary Gold knows college football playoffs. More money, more greed, more problems, and soon more accountability from the student athletes. They're going to have to play these playoff games and bowl games per their contract, just like an NFL player. Thank you, Kerry Gold Knowles, for your incredible generosity to this channel. Once again, I thank you so very much. Let me thank everybody who's come on in at the very beginning of this Sunday late afternoon show. It's a stack show. Can't wait to get to it. T-Ducks is in the house. Florida Canes, afternoon all. LSU Tiger, Ryan Brooks. Holy smokes. LSU ready to go? Are they ready to compete for the SEC championship this year? I believe Ryan Brooks has said, don't sleep on Nussmeier. We shall see. Got a great left tackle, got a great right tackle at LSU. You got a whole lot of good players. We shall see. KS Bear Fan is in the house. Mr. Monkey Says. Randy Taylor, Ryan Martin. Feels like there's good news for the Pac-2 today. Bruce Harris is in the house. Jimmy is here. I cannot explain how it's legal, Larry GM. But the article kind of, we'll see what the consultant says. How about that? Don in Kansas, happy Sunday, Greg. Mr. Mountaineer Mooncat is in the house. John Benser, Kayla Ramirez. Be reminding everybody to hit that like button. Thank you so much. Richard Jones is in the house. Sheep and Wolves Clothing. Cervezas. Holy smokes, he's had several cervezas so far. Some beers. Chad Bracey is here. Randy Taylor. Bimba 7579. Mr. Bearcat is in the house. Mr. Bearcat is in the house. John Dry. Humble Buck Duck. I love that name. Humble Bumble Duck. Humble Bumble Duck. Good afternoon, Greg. And all. Let's light this candle. Beautiful. Stephen Vitt. Alani Ted is in the house. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Tony Rodriguez is here. Tom DeBay is here. David Kreitzer is in the house. Nick Kelso. Ooh, I hope everything is okay. A tree falls through the residence. Oh my goodness. Expedition Greg is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Nick Kelso, John Dry, DP. Coy is here, early peak member. Joe Z, early peak member. Go Black 45. LSU goes 10-2 this year. Did not do great with adding in the portal. 10-2. If LSU goes 10-2, they are going to the playoffs. They are going to the playoffs. Jay Chapman, PNW Ute is in the house. Morris Simmons. Okay, let's get to it, guys. Let's get to it, guys and gals. Thank you for joining me. Sunday afternoon, May 5th. The Omaha Herald, Tom Chattel this morning. Where is college athletics headed? An SEC consultant might have the answer. Not just an SEC consultant, a well-known person in the industry, willing to go on record, willing to speak, says a lot. So, a word of advice. This, I would advise you to take this. This is legit. This is legit, in my opinion. When Bruce Rasmussen came to Creighton in 1980, the Jays basketball coach Willis Reed was making $30,000 a year. We provide a link in the description box. You can read the whole thing. 14 years later, Rasmussen hired Dana Altman for $150,000 a year. I almost got fired, Rasmussen said. Our president was like, why are you giving him that kind of money? Ah, yes, the innocent age. Today, college basketball players are getting paid $300,000 to $750,000 NIL sums to transfer schools. It's a runaway train driven by greed and competitive boosters. It's only just beginning. Soon, college athletes may sign contracts. Okay? That's got to be a pretty important thing here. Contracts. Larry GM and everybody else and I would put myself in that same pool. How can this get legal? How this can become legal? Soon, college athletes may sign contracts for salaries that are collectively bargained for the schools by the athletes and their representatives. This is what I've been calling for since forever, but since the beginning of this YouTube channel. Exactly that. And it is Rasmussen talking about it. Bruce Rasmussen. The situation is fluid, as the NCAA has stepped out of the way and college athletes go farther away from amateurism. College athletics go farther away from amateurism and closer to an identity of professionalism. These are historic times. Rasmussen has a front row seat to the show. The former Creighton athletic director works now as a consultant to several major Division I athletic departments and conferences, including the SEC. This is the PATC money shot of the article. This is the PATC money shot of the article. He and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey talk frequently. The job suits him. Rasmussen was always a forward-thinking athletic director. He helped reshape Creighton's identity and strength in Omaha. Where is all this headed? It seemed like a good topic of discussion for Rasmussen. He has specific ideas. Now, again, Rasmussen was willing to talk on record. He got the go-ahead to talk on record. This is very interesting. We might be seeing all this heading towards reality. For instance, revenue sharing with athletes. I think it's going to happen, Rasmussen said. In reality, I think it should happen. And sooner than later. Why? Because the NCAA schools want to settle a lawsuit that could cost the NCAA up to $4 billion in back NIL payments to athletes. Part of that settlement would be a revenue sharing structure to athletes, a move that the NCAA leaders think will prevent future lawsuits by athletes. How in the world of NIL would that work? Where would the money come from? Now this gets real interesting here. Rasmussen, I think what is going to happen is it will come from the television revenue, not the gate receipts or the booster club donations, to get the right seat location and parking and all of that. This is going to be coming out of mostly the television revenue. Rasmussen thinks the athletes would be brought to the table to negotiate the deals. A person who talks with Greg Sankey frequently, a consultant to the SEC commissioner and to other athletic departments, believes the athletes will be brought to the table to negotiate the deals. A collective bargaining agreement, just like the NFL, Rasmussen said. Wow. There has nobody who's been on record saying. Now Rasmussen, he's a former athletic director. He's not a sitting commissioner. But for those who know he has the ear, he has the space, time, and connections with Sankey and other people in the industry. And he's saying a collective bargaining agreement just like the NFL. This is big news. Now, a whole lot of people are sleeping on this. They may not know this interview happened. They may not know this great reporting by Tom Chattel of the Omaha Herald happened. But I'm letting you know what happened. This is important. Let's say the Big Ten schools are getting $50 million per school per year for football. The athletes collectively bargain that they're going to get 40% of that. So that's $20 million per year goes to football players. There's going to be contracts. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. There's going to be contracts. There will be transparency. And just like in the NFL, a salary cap. Look, there will be transparency. Now, I don't know about you all, but I love college football, and I love everything about college football. We talk about everything in college football on this national college football channel. We talk spring football games. We have crazy, way too early top 25. We have bowl projections that are crazy and way out. We're talking about conference races. We're talking about quarterback battles for the backup position at SMU. We talk about everything. And you know what's going to be added on to our discussions in the PATC chat room? Do you know what's going to be added on to the phone calls that we receive at the PATC phone line? We're going to be talking about discussing why in the heck the backup quarterback at Alabama just signed a $450,000 contract. We're going to be talking about why is it that Michigan spends more money on their offensive line than Ohio State. We're going to be looking into the Oklahoma State wrestling program. Man, they spend more money than almost anybody else on their athletes. The Iowa Hawkeye wrestling program. The Boston College hockey program. The Minnesota Golden Gophers hockey program. We're going to be having all types of discussions. We're going to be talking about general managers of athletic departments. There's no way the athletic director is going to be your manager. There's no way the athletic director has the ability, the time to do this job. Roster management. Your coach can't do it. You're going to have a general manager overseeing your revenue-making sports and where the money goes to and how, when you recruit, there's going to be money offers on the table. Transparent, probably. People are going to be arguing we should have offered this guy more. We should have. The transfer portal, oh, he's got a 2-year contract. He can go out in year 3. It's going to be off the chain. It's going to be incredible. John Dry in the chat room says Vandy is a minor league football team. Well, they're going to be putting their money, that big TV money that they get, they're going to be putting it in the baseball program. Purdue Boilermakers. You know they're going to be putting whatever that salary cap is, they're going to be putting a little bit more of a higher percentage of that salary cap into the men's basketball program than most, if not all, the Big Ten schools. It is going to be fascinating from all different angles. Where does your athletic department, what do they prioritize? Are they going to be making the correct decisions? General managers are going to get fired. They're going to get hired and fired. Back to the article. We got so much to talk about when it comes to this subject. There's going to be contracts. There will be transparency. We're going to know how much left tackle Billy Joel is going to get. And just like in the NFL, a salary cap. The salary cap would be the same for all schools, regardless of revenue pool. Now, that's a little bit of a different, Rasmussen's telling us a little bit different than the reporting coming out of Pete Thamel and Ross Dellinger. The salary cap will be the same for all schools, regardless of revenue pool. Rasmussen said if the cap was $20 million and Alabama wanted to pay players $30 million, there would be a luxury tax. PATC money shot number 2. Remember when we sat back and we had this discussion about the Pete Thamel, Ross Dellinger articles reporting? And I said, why would Ohio State and Alabama, why would they agree to a salary cap? Well, if you can go over the salary cap and pay a luxury tax, now you've got the biggest athletic departments. Now you've got them buying into this. You've got them buying into this. Salary cap, the same for all schools, but there's going to be a luxury tax. Now, I don't know about you in the PATC chat room. I don't know why I came up with the name Billy Joe. PNWU. I don't know. It just came out. What was I saying? I've lost track of mine. Now, we were saying, so the bigger schools, the bigger athletic departments, this is how they buy into this. My question is where does that luxury tax money go? This is the first time. The luxury tax, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong in the chat room. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe anybody reported on a possible luxury tax. I completely understand. Remember when we started talking about Rasmussen? He did this interview. He did it in the open. He knew this was going to be publicized. You know that he talks to Greg Sankey frequently. He's a well-known cat. He's a well-known person. Former athletic director, Cretan. Is this why he did the interview? Just to make sure everybody knows where the SEC stands? Sure, we're for a salary cap. Sure. But if Alabama wants to go over that salary cap, then there'll be a luxury tax. In this article, there was no specific percentage. For example, if Alabama goes $30 million, that's $10 million more. So there'd be a certain percentage of that $10 million that they would pay, and where would that money go? I do not know. I do not know. Rasmussen used the football TV money model. Earlier this week, Yahoo Sports used a model where schools use ticket revenue and donor sponsorship money. I'm not saying that's what the specifics are going to be. Rasmussen said, that's the concept we're moving towards. Okay, so Rasmussen lets us in, I think, on a little bit more. I think he's letting us in on a little bit more information. He, of course, the specifics haven't been hammered out, right? 40 days to get this done for the deadline for the House versus NCAA lawsuit to get the settlement done. Rasmussen's saying, I don't know what the specifics are, but you know what? The concept that we're moving to is throw all that math out the window. Throw it out the window. Because the concept that we're moving to is we are willing to negotiate. This is going to be part of the settlement. We are willing to negotiate with representatives of student athletes a certain percentage of the TV dollars. And if it's 40%, okay, whatever. Basically, Rasmussen's telling you where the SEC is going with this. Plus, salary cap for everybody. Everybody in football, plus a luxury tax. That's what the SEC is believing, thinking. This is what they're pushing for. In the world Rasmussen envisions, schools will decide how much individual players are paid. Star players and starters will likely get more than others. He thinks football and basketball players would garner more because of the sport's large media contracts. Would schools in the SEC and the Big Ten, who make a larger share of the TV money, be able to pay players more than the other conferences? Probably. In head-to-head recruiting battles with the other leagues, the SEC and the Big Ten will be able to offer higher salaries. Possibly. Not everybody in the SEC, not everybody in the Big Ten. I will go over that in a little bit. But that doesn't mean a school in the Big 12 or the Big East in basketball couldn't find money in its athletic budget through donations to match any offer. It might mean some athletic directors juggle money from other sports to make sure they can pay a star volleyball player or baseball player. Absolutely. That's going to be happening all the time, I think. Right? When you got that star volleyball player, if you're Nebraska, you're paying that star volleyball player. If you're Vanderbilt, you're paying that top baseball player. If you're Mississippi State and you're recruiting one of the top catchers in the country out of high school, you're going to pay that catcher, that starter, that pitcher. If coaches think the NIL is stressful, wait until they are in charge of deciding which players get paid and how much. And wait until revenue sharing is a major part of recruiting. Well, we've been saying this forever. It is going to be a major part of recruiting. This is why Oklahoma and Texas called the SEC. Not because it was going to be easier in the SEC, because they wanted to get above the stratification line when it came to revenue, because student athletes were going to start to get paid directly. This is why USC called the Big Ten. Now, the question is, if coaches think the NIL is stressful, wait until they are in charge of deciding which players. The coaches will play a heavy role in that. Gus Malzahn at UCF, he'll probably be able to dictate how much each football player will get. But in some of the, that's just one example. Some of these football programs, though, I don't know, maybe a general manager is going to get more and more power. Somebody who used to be a general manager or some other position in the NFL when it comes to roster management. I tell you what, it's going to be very difficult for a head coach, to have these type of relationships with their players if they also are in charge of the players' salaries. Anytime that has happened in the NFL back in the day, it blew up. I happen to think in this world, there's going to be a new position created, the general manager of the football, looking over the football, basketball, and whatever other revenue-making sponsored sport team you have in your athletic department. I got to believe there's going to be a general manager. Especially when you consider, how much money in that salary cap is going to go to the football program, how much is it going to go to the basketball program, and then how much is it going to go to other student athletes in your athletic department that are highly impactful. As for athletic directors, they will be adding a major expense and make the rest of the budget work. There will be headaches ahead. How does a school fund $20 million? Rasmussen said. Where was it going before? And how do you as a university make up for that. The majority of the Division I student athletes, Rasmussen says, will not participate in revenue sharing. Very important here. This is Rasmussen, big time consultant. Talks to Greg Sankey all the time. Majority of the student athletes, the scholarship players, student athletes in your athletic department will not participate in revenue sharing. They're still going to be getting that NIL money if they can get it, but they're not going to participate in revenue sharing. Interesting. And he suggested some non-revenue sports could get cut to make room for revenue sharing at schools without a large media contract. Clearly, revenue sharing will widen the gap between the haves and have-nots. The test of the Title IX will be interesting in revenue sharing, but Title IX's intent speaks to equal opportunity, not revenue earned, not equal revenue earned. Such is the case. Such is the case with NIL, where some women athletes make more than men. If you look at the NBA, they share revenue on the TV contracts and the licensing, all the jerseys and everything being sold. Rasmussen said, you can see that being a part of it too. So, the percentage of the TV contracts, licensing, and jersey goes to the players in the NBA. You can see that in college sports. It's inequities. It's happening today. NIL, for a lot of people, stands for now it's legal. NIL's place in revenue sharing world will be worth watching. Now, Rasmussen has a very interesting take on this as well. NIL has exploded into a major source of revenue for athletes in all sports, in a way for schools to buy transfers and recruits. Now, get this. When revenue sharing comes, Rasmussen thinks NIL will still be around, but in the form it was intended. He doesn't see athletes cashing in big on both a salary and huge NIL check. Athletes who aren't getting a salary will still be able to cash in on NIL. I don't know how you take that away from players. You can't. There will be NIL, but it will be in a different form once this revenue sharing starts to happen. It will be in the form it was intentionally intended. Get money for your autograph, run a camp, be the spokesman for Godfather's Pizza or Baxter Auto. If we get into revenue sharing, that part of NIL will go away. The university will decide we have this much in revenue for athletes. And the university will decide who gets swept. It won't be decided by 1890 or the Bird Club or whatever. In other words, these players are going to be signing contracts. They're going to be signing contracts. These are all Rasmussen's opinions based on conversations with athletic directors and conference commissioners around college sports. But he is a major consultant to Greg Sankey. Remember that. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody can guarantee anything. But most of the Division I administrators believe salaries, contracts, and unions are on the way. Salaries, contracts, and unions. It's not a bad time to be a consultant, Rasmussen said, because nobody can tell you you're wrong because nobody knows what's going to happen. Sounds like a better time to be a consultant than an athletic director. Wow. Bruce Rasmussen. Bruce Rasmussen, consultant to commissioners, one who talks to Greg Sankey frequently. Bruce Rasmussen, former athletic director of Cretin, basically telling you what he's getting from SEC and probably the Big Ten. Collective bargaining, which Tony Petitti won't talk about, but it looks like they're talking about it behind closed doors. Collective bargaining, salary cap, and a luxury tax. That luxury tax is being included to make sure the biggest athletic departments have a buy-in to this system. Where would that luxury tax money go? Would that go to the lowest revenue-making athletic departments? Much like MLB, Major League Baseball, NBA. I know some of that money goes to teams that are barely making it. Very interesting article. I'm fascinating to read what you guys say in the chat. I do see, before we get on to our other big story of the day, Kerry Gold knows I think this $20 million thing needs to get vetoed. Well, at some point, okay, let's say this gets vetoed. But the thing is, something has to pass. Some revenue sharing, okay, this House versus NCAA, it's a two-parter. They have to agree on money given back on past pay that the student athletes missed out on. 7,000 athletes, 7,000 student athletes are part of this class action. And if they're willing to settle on $2.7, $2.9 billion, okay. But that's only one part of it. There has to be another part of it, according to the House lawyers, and that is, what is your plan going forward to share revenue with the student athletes? So whatever gets vetoed now, at some point, something has to pass, and we are on a, 35 more days, 30 more days of this deadline? Flux flow, truthfully, none of this is a good idea. The architect, a positive is the possibility of talent staying in college instead of leaving when eligible for the draft. Ryan Willie, I miss the good old days. Players Union will only agree to a salary floor, not any salary cap. It's interesting, isn't it? Normally, yes. You know, the reason why ML, one of the reasons why Major League Baseball never has a salary cap is because the unions got real big, real strong, real early in the world of baseball. They became powerful. Football, it did not happen that way. Now, I don't know. Look, this is a House versus NCAA, right? There's going to be some revenue sharing component to that to get that settled. But this is not part of any collective bargaining agreement. This would come after that. And it sounds like Bruce Rasmussen and commissioners know this is where it's heading. This is what Bruce Rasmussen said. So, that the old saying, you shoot as high as you possibly can at the start of negotiations. The first negotiations between whoever represents the student athletes, that will probably where they're going to be at their very weakest. You know how that is. So if there's any chance to get a salary cap, from the university's point of view, from the conference's point of view, it's probably get it done now. The first time we negotiate, just get it done. There is no players union. No question, there isn't. But it sounds like from this article, from Bruce Rasmussen, they are expecting for it to happen. Laura Weiss, college football becoming the minor league of football. The Big Two is AAA, and the Big 12 and ACC is AA. DP, Major League Baseball salaries have become obscene. This is why schools, conferences are hiring ex-media heads. They knew what was coming. Very interesting comment. Very interesting comment by Gold Black 45. Okay, so let's get to the second big story of this Sunday afternoon. Hold on, I got to refill up my glass here. Hold on. No, it's not. It's actually water. I'm taking some pretty powerful antibiotics. So I'm just hanging in there, guys. I'm just hanging in there. Okay. Second big story. We opened up a matinee special in the Holy Smokes Theater. It was a while ago, a few weeks ago. Pac-2 and friends. Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State at the center of the stage. And then we had a whole bunch of schools scattered everywhere. This drama is about Washington State and Oregon State beginning to evaluate, starting to collect valuations, trying to create the best, most valuable conference they can build. First of all, they've got two options. One is to build their own Frankenstein conference. Number two is just take the 12 Mountain West schools in and make it a Pac-14, and there it is. There is a lot of chatter. That just bringing in 12 Mountain West schools is definitely not the chalk. It looks like it's going the other way. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your super chat. The NFL isn't going to like this because it's going to affect future negotiations. Negotiations on what? On their own with their players? Interesting comment. Maybe affects their negotiations when it comes to the rookie scale. In other words, I think, of course, student athletes getting paid more money this direct compensation. Some of these players are going to be willing to stay in college and use up all their eligibility before they go in the NFL draft. Some of them. Interesting comment, Evil Badger, Ryan Willie. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much. Interesting. The architect adds on, Ryan Willie, I'm thinking this will increase wages in the NFL. Okay, so let me tell you where the seating is after a long conversation this morning, Sunday. There's been major movement. There isn't just 3 schools at the center of the stage any longer. It isn't just Boise State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. Now, I'm going to be very particular. I've got my notes here on how, again, if you're new to the channel, the Holy Smokes Theater is how I can pass along information to you to tell you what we think is going on in a very high drama part of college football, protecting everybody, protecting sources, being able to give you a peek around the corner so you guys can understand what's going on without me burning any bridges. And we try to do it in an entertaining fashion. I'm going to set the stage. And you might want to take note on this, but this is where we put schools says a lot. At the very center of the stage is Boise State. At the right side, so if you're looking at the stage, Boise State is in the center. And on the right side of Boise State is Fresno State. On the left side of Boise State is San Diego State. So if you're looking at the stage, it's Fresno State, Boise State, San Diego State, and Boise State occupies the very center. There are other schools that have jumped onto the stage. And those schools are going to be on the left side, if you're looking at the stage, your left, looking at the stage, the left of San Diego State. The next school that is on the left side of San Diego State is Colorado State. They're up on the stage. And I will explain why once we get through the seating arrangement. Next to Colorado State, on the left side of Colorado State, is UNLV. UNLV is now on the stage. On the left side of UNLV is Air Force. Those 3 schools are now also on the stage. There are 6 schools on the stage. The matinee special, Pac-2 and Friends. You've got Fresno State, Boise State in the middle, San Diego State, Colorado State, UNLV, Air Force. Those 6 schools Now, remember when we said the first three schools last week or 2 weeks ago, these were the schools that Washington and Oregon State would first, this is after they've called Oregon State and Washington State, and all these schools have, to try to figure out how interested, after getting valuations from the media partners, how interested in would they be in creating this new Pac-12 conference, knowing that not all the Mountain West schools very well may not be invited. And exit fees, some of it would be paid by Oregon State, Washington State money that they got from the divorce from the other Pac-10 schools. Some of it maybe have to be paid off by Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, whatever, whoever joins the conference. But trying to gauge the interest of those three schools first. Possibly showing them information on what the valuation, how much they would expect to get from a certain created conference. Remember, Washington State and Oregon State just struck a deal. They don't want to drop from that deal. They don't want to lower. They don't want to lose more revenue. And they would if they would include the whole Mountain West. The other schools have jumped on the stage because there is traction to this option. There is more. This option is being worked on. It's not imminent. There is not going to be any announcement anytime soon, but it ain't going to be more than a year. This has got to get formed for the 2026 season. Schools are going to have to make announcements if this Frankenstein conference happens. There's a whole bunch of work to be done. Media, negotiations, settlement, exit fees, giving the other schools that don't make it in that conference, give them the opportunity, give them enough length of time for them to form their options going into 2026. There's a million reasons, in dollars and reasons, why this has got to get done relatively soon. 8 months from now, 6 months from now. So those three schools, Colorado State, UNLV, and Air Force, seem to have, well, we're not just seeing, but there is interest from Oregon State and Washington State to include those schools. Now, the further out away you are from the center of the stage, the further out away you are from being of interest. So Air Force is the furthest interest, but they are on the stage. UNLV is the second furthest least interest, but they're on the stage. Colorado State is standing right next to San Diego State. Colorado State is in a good spot. For the other 6 Mountain West schools, we got them sitting in the 40th row. They are now watching. They're watching. They're praying. They get some sort of call. They be able to have some conversation. But they're on the outside looking in, unfortunately. They are in the 40th row. From what we were told this morning, and this is the only way we can really pass on the information. This is how we chose to pass on the information. But that's not all. In the 15th row, lurking. Now, a lot of schools have left the auditorium. In our previous update, we had schools scattered all over the place, but things have cleared up. In the 15th row, they're lurking, they're watching. There is interest, obvious interest. There will be talks, there will be specific talks. Tulane is sitting in the 15th row. Memphis is sitting next to Tulane in the 15th row. UTSA is in the 15th row. Navy is in the 15th row. Tulane, Memphis, UTSA, and Navy are all sitting in the 15th row. Don't know how interested they are. They're interested enough to lurk. They're interested enough to watch. They're interested enough to hear Oregon State and Washington State, to hear the Pac-2 commissioner, to hear them out. And there's nobody else in the theater at this point. North Texas is not in the theater. Rice is not in the theater. So there it is. That's the seating arrangement. We've got more clarifications. Boise State and Oregon State and Washington State they know, we don't know, but they know what their level of value to the conference, the media rights. They know what they need to get to create a conference valuable enough for them to sign on the dotted line, at the same time making sure they have the power and the ability to have an exit hatch just in case the ACC implodes. But there you have it. Now I'm going to open up the phone lines. Greg, you need a cardboard cutout with logos for the theater. I need somebody to draw me up a picture of what I just said. Some artists out there, draw me up a picture so I can plaster it on my title screen. Holy Smokes Theater, Pac-2 and Friends, and then put on the stage what I just said. So if you know anybody, any artists, send them this information to them. Okay. We're opening up the phone lines. 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Talk about anything college football that you like. But we have carried two major stories today. The update in the Holy Smokes Theater, and boom! SEC consultant might have the answers. Tom Chattel, Omaha Herald, collective bargaining, salary cap, luxury tax could all be part of the future. So give us a call, 763-260-1333. I'm just going to be looking out here if there's any breaking news in college football. How do you like those Timberwolves now? How do you like them Timberwolves now? Congratulations to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Congratulations to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They win Game 7. Minnesota Timberwolves defeat the Denver Nuggets, the world champions. Game 1 in Denver. Anthony Edwards, 43 points. And it's not just him scoring 43 points. It's him being an impactful defensive player, a facilitator, one-on-one defensive player, great help-out defensive player. Man, oh man. Laramie really suffers from not having a big airport. True. They're not in the theater as of right now. Well, they are. Excuse me, they are, but they're in the 40th row. Tulane, Memphis, UTSA, Navy all make no sense for the new Pac if they want to stay out west. Well, a Navy, Memphis would be the most eastern, right? If that would happen. UTSA, the Texas school. Navy has a lot of support in Texas. Navy always likes to play a Western division, whatever conference that they're in. Navy would have a terrible travel schedule. Greg, is there a difference between right and left of the stage? Normally we would line up all the schools center to the left, right? That's how we do it. All of our Colorado, Arizona, left side of the state, left side of the center of the stage. In this case, first of all, it would be very difficult for Fresno State and San Diego State to really have one before the other. So I wanted them sort of to be equal. So Fresno State being on one side of Boise State, San Diego State being on the other side of Boise State, says that they're pretty equal with each other. Boise State, though, has just a little bit more, even though they don't have a big media market, obviously. But they are the ones that the media partners would help keep that TV revenue value high enough for Washington State and Oregon State to create this conference. Boise State, it would be a pretty important part of this. You kind of need to have them. And then you get the other two California schools, right? Fresno State and this is what's being told to me. Those three are the linchpin for anything else to happen. If those three schools are willing to, because, you got to imagine if the AAC, first of all, the AAC commissioner, right? Tim Pernetti, the new commissioner, he said he was going to be aggressive. Who do you think he's going to be looking at when trying to expand the AAC? If he's willing to try to expand the AAC, he's trying to bring in private equity. He says his boardroom is going to be like a shark, the Shark Tank. Well, one of those aggressive moves would be, hey, Mountain West School 1, 2, 3, why not join the AAC? So you got to get Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State to buy in to this possibility. And then you go from there. So there wasn't really a difference. There is a reason, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole today about putting Fresno State on the right side, but basically for now there is no difference. We'll just keep it at that. John Grove, it's going to be a blow for Wyoming not getting the opportunity to play in Colorado. If Air Force and Colorado State bolt, Denver is a massive pipeline for the incoming students and alumni. Go Black 45, if UTEP had any type of success over the past 20 years, they would be a perfect fit. Jacksonville State is not in the theater at this point. Now, obviously, Tulane and Memphis would pick up that phone if after they talked to the ACC and the ACC was interested in them. Obviously, the ACC would become a big player once it implodes. My question is, does the ACC, once they bring on California, once they bring on Stanford officially, once they bring on SMU officially on July 1st, does the ACC think about voting in like one more school of their choice before it implodes? Been hearing a little bit of chatter on that. Some school that it's willing to give up media revenue money to add one more school, one school of choice. It's kind of far out there, but hearing some rattling on that. How many schools do you think the Pac-2 wants to get in? Whatever number helps them when it comes to negotiating with the potential media partners. And they would know. Now, great question, Jan, but think of this. Oregon State and Washington State are signing a deal with the CW and Fox. The CW is getting 10 games. Fox is getting 3. In any negotiation for the next media rights deal for Oregon State, Washington State, for whatever conference they build up, whatever they plan to do, and remember, Fox has the Mountain West games. They're going to be talking to Fox and CW first, second, and third, right? The valuations that they're getting mainly is coming from Fox and the CW when creating this conference. So keep that in mind. You have to be a conference of 8 schools to qualify Hold on a second. I got to write this note down here. You have to have 8 members. You got to be an 8-member conference for your conference champion to have the opportunity to be one of the top 5 conference champions to get an automatic bye in the playoffs. I mean, automatic berth. And to be one of the top 4 conference champions, ranked conference champions, to get that first round bye. But more importantly, to be one of the top 5 ranked conference champions to get the automatic berth, according to the playoff manager committee structure. You got to be an 18 member, so it has to be 8 members. Will they go to 10? I don't know. Will they go to 12? It depends on who can join and the valuation. Again, I don't think it's going to go to 14. I do not think at this time. Now, maybe something changes, right? Nothing. If these Mountain West schools say no, the presidents say no, I've got a deep connection with that school. You're going to leave out the president over there. We do some special stuff when it comes to academics. If Boise State, Fresno State San Diego State, Colorado State, if they're not willing to do this, then maybe Washington State's, Oregon State's only choice is to bring on all the Mountain West schools. But it doesn't seem that's the way it's going. Not what I'm being told. That's why more schools jumped on the stage today. They are looking towards the ACC. John Dry, Washington State, and Oregon State should be looking towards the ACC. No question about it. And they are. Whatever they're doing when it comes to creating a conference, at the same time, they're creating an exit hatch. And some of the schools that Washington State and Oregon State are talking to, they want to talk to, getting valuations on to build the next Pac conference, some of those schools want to make sure they have an exit hatch to go to the ACC if they get the call, if the ACC implodes. I don't know if the MAC does, the Mountain West does survive. They would have to add on. If it goes, if say all six, like you say in the question, Jan, let's say all 6 teams that you mentioned got to the Pac, how does the Mountain West Conference survive? Maybe they don't, but they would have 6 left over, and then they would be trying to add 2 to at least become an 8-team member in some sort of media deal. That's the big one. They can always get 2 more schools, but to get a media rights deal, that's the important part of it. And would the Mountain West Conference then eventually lose their relationship with Fox if Fox goes with Oregon State, Washington State in whatever is this newly rebuilt Pac conference? The ACC also has to deal with the CW. Could be that's where it's heading with Oregon State, Washington State. I imagine these Mountain West schools would need some assurances. You would think they would want them, but I don't think they're going to get them. You would think they would want them, though, right? And that might be, the whole ACC thing, the possibility of imploding is probably the main point of contention when it comes to schools like Tulane and possibly even Memphis. Do they really want to jump on that stage? But I do think, Richard, and everybody else, I do think there's probably a decent size gap between the valuation of the 6 teams that are on the stage, plus Oregon State and Washington State, versus the valuation of a 14-team Pac conference with all the Mountain West schools and Washington State and Oregon State. I think the gap between those 2 worlds, I think there's enough of it there that is making that this option of creating a Frankenstein conference is what Washington State and Oregon State are looking at, if they can pull it off. One other thing, phone lines are open. Though you don't have to call. We don't need phone calls today, but the phone lines are open. One other thing. Let me get to it before I forget. Hold on. Now, we believe We believe. I cannot promise you a rose garden. PATC community, I cannot promise you a rose garden, but tomorrow, May 6th, at some point, I'm going to be doing a live show. The earliest I'm going to do the live show, even if this story breaks before, I'm not going to be able to do a packed breakfast, PATC breakfast. So if this story, which I'm about to tell you, if this story breaks in the morning, I won't be able to cover it until the early afternoon. We believe that Clemson is going to reply in Mecklenburg County tomorrow, May 6th. Now remember, Clemson filed a lawsuit against the ACC in Pickens County. ACC filing a lawsuit in Mecklenburg County, and Clemson should be filing their reply back at, motion to dismiss ACC's lawsuit in Mecklenburg County, whatever they're going to call it. That is going to happen tomorrow. And if you remember, this most recent Clemson language in their amended complaint, they added on the seventh part of it. They added on the damages. They were pretty salty in their language. I think Clemson's getting a little bit more aggressive. So when that reply gets shown at Mecklenburg Court, we are going to be going live if it's done in the afternoon. If it's done in the morning, I'm going to have to try to figure out something. What does the PATCA theater look like? We just did it. We just went through it all. I can tell you where the seating is, but I'm not going to be able to go through the whole thing again. I'll go check out the beginning of the program an hour and a half ago. It is Boise State at the center of the stage. Standing on the right side of Boise State is Fresno State. Standing on the left side of Boise State is San Diego State. Then going from the left side of the stage, standing next to San Diego State is Colorado State. Then UNLV, then Air Force. The 40th row is taken up. The 40th row in the Holy Smokes Theater is taken up by the other 6 current Mountain West Conference schools. And then the 15th row, the only other 4 schools that now remain in the Holy Smokes Theater matinee is Tulane, Memphis, UTSA, and Navy. Washington State and Oregon State, they're running this drama. Boise State is at the center of it, standing right between Fresno State and San Diego State. Those schools have to buy in. For Oregon State and Washington State to pull off a Frankenstein conference instead of going to the 14-member Pac-12 with 12 Mountain West schools. So tomorrow, Mecklenburg County, buckle up, brace for impact, and that should be it should be a very fascinating show tomorrow. So anyways, I'm going to close it up for today. Again, battling an infection. I'm on some antibiotics. We were able to do an hour and a half live show. Doesn't look like we're going to get any phone calls, so we're going to shut that down. I do appreciate you all coming on in. Sunday is okay, is all right for PATC. I do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button and open up your notifications. I think we're going to have a pretty interesting show tomorrow. Clemson making a reply back to the ACC in Mecklenburg County. We're going to be covering everything in college football here in the next week. I'm all pumped up, all excited. It's very interesting times. I appreciate you all coming in. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.